Alright, so we're on Gitain's Anecdote, a song once heard. So stage 1, a story told by candlelight. Also, it's this type of thing. I thought it was gonna be the okay. For those who mastered the art of music, humanity has no source of praise. One especially exactly claim goes as follow. When the most skillful musician performs, even phoenixes will land graciously upon his shoulder. Fragments of quiet conversation are swallowed by darkness. Fortunately, there is still a single candle. We're lighting a candle! Oh, it's a small candle. Oh, it's a small... Okay, so maybe it melted and it's like a small wick now. Under its dim glow, the storyteller's face slowly comes into view. In every way, he is an ordinary young man, the flickering flame reflected in his eyes. There are far too many humans like him in this world. Some grow accustomed to lies, others hold loyalty as their creed. As time they prize their own lives above all else. At others, they sacrifice them for reasons unknown to anyone. Purely unscrupulous. Once upon a time, there was an incredible gifted Getain player. One spring, he sat alone beneath a pastoral tree and played a newly composed piece. It was his life's proudest work, only it lacked a proper ending. The listener seemed unimpressed. Noticing this, the musician cleared his throat and unconsciously dropped a hand to his side. A moment later, as if touching something reassuring, he speaks again. When the piece ended, the Getain player looked up and saw a bird-like mortal with human head standing before him. "Why did you stop playing?" he asked. The Getain player replies, "This is as much as I had written. I'm not sure how to continue." "Then allow me to complete it," the immortal said, "and together we should create an unrivaled score, the likes of which the world had never seen." The candlelight is too dim to reveal the listener's face, but the musician does see a finger idly tracing circles on the tabletop. Another cliche story, another tale of a frustrated human yearning for the unreachable, hoping for the day a mortal might lower their gaze upon them. How laughable, how dull. I can prove it to you. Perhaps this time, perhaps this time will be different. A faint rustling sound. He places something at his side onto the table and slowly pushes it into the candlelight. It's a Getain. The Gojit. Uh, Alright, so I can't pronounce that one. Covered in a fine crack, the lecture is old, but under the light it holds a shine that can only come from years spent in careful hands. Its strings tremble faintly, as if an unfinished melody still breathes within them. The musician then slides over a small knife. The listener accepts it absent-mindedly, turning it over in his hand. A rather fine Getain maker knife, with a plain, sharpened blade. "Try cutting the strings." The listener taps the top of the table with the knife handled in response. He extends his hand. The blade pauses on the string. A flick. Then a slash. So we're cutting this. We broke it! Uh-oh. Wasn't my fault. Utterly unexpected. A soft gasp leaves his lips as he leans in for a closer look. The strings are no ordinary black silk. Their hue is a pale blue-gray, but texture resembling feathers. They shine with a faint silvery light in the candle's glow. The immortal and the Getain player became fast friends. Admiring his new companion's talent, the mortal stays in the human world. He uses his arcane skill. He alters the bone of the Getain player along with his fate. From then on, the Getain player's life flows as smoothly as a stream as his name spreads far and wide. Let me just Google see what the actual pronunciation is.
You are looking at Julian's pronunciation guide, where we look at how to pronounce better some of the Chinese musical instrument. For more names from music, make sure to stay tuned. Related names, there's quite a few here that are a bit confusing. So that's from Mandarin, China originally, and that's why the spelling is a bit confusing. Guqin, yes, Q in Mandarin, or at least the way.
Getain, okay. Alright, altering one's fate through the changing of bones, the listener straightens up. He has heard such outlandish rumors before. Perhaps there is some truth behind them after all. Here, before your very eyes, the strings fashioned from the feathers of a mortal. The listener waits for him to continue. The divine bird descends from the mountain, a gifted human, a reshaping of destiny. It's a good story. This musician might just be the one he's been looking for. But is he good enough? Can his talents capture the attention of a divine bird? Under his audience's curious scrutiny, the musician takes a deep breath. This is not the first time he has told the legend of Ming, and it will luckily not be the last. The Getain player in the story was my ancestor. Two, like old friends. The rain does not stop until nightfall. Dark clouds disperse, and the moon makes its quiet ascent. In its light, a single drop of dew slides down a slender leaf, itching its way towards the tip. This is the place. The Ming draws its wings and lands in the clearly halfway up the mountains. Last year's fallen leaves are soaked with dew. The new grass beneath yet to grow in. It is as soft as a blanket. Cross the path, and the shabby hut is right outside. So we have a plain lawn thatch hut. Pursue a few slabs of bluestone weighing down the ridges of its roof. It belongs to one of the Getain clan who descended the mountains before the two ever met. Never to return, now it is made the home of a human musician who wanders into the mountains by chance. With a lift of his wings, his bone staff floats slightly in the air and taps at the door. Above the last pitiful dread of firewood, the musician sprinkles the crushed tea leaves into water drawn from the mountain stream. Even though the water only boiled once, the flames in the small clay stove slowly dims. He sighs and places down a pair of ceramic cups he fished out from some corner. They're charming antiques, not the recent made. He fills them with tea. A cup is pushed towards the visitor. Thank you. The Ming does not drink tea, yet still extends a wing to pull the cup closer. On a chilly spring night, the touch of a warm water has a way of setting the heart. The aroma of the tea seems different from before. The musician moves the tea set aside and sits across from Getain. Though you live in the mountains, you seem far more familiar with the land below than I expected. Let's see. I take little interest in what goes on down below. Gentian takes a cautious sniff of the tea before nudging it away.
No.
I take little interest in what goes on down below. But my kin left behind many records. Thus, I have some small knowledge. Due to your decision, you've grown more confused. The mailman shakes his head and changes the subject. Has your instrument been repaired? Following his gaze, the musician looks at the playing Gojin at his side and gently presses a hand against the string. There are no materials in the mountain, and we'll have to wait. Inevitable shame. I had hoped to play something for you. Pay no mind. Your bones have healed well. I dare say your departure from this mountain is approaching. Yes. He stares absently at the wavering candlelight. In the silence, the lonely wit flickers and crackles. The faint sound startles the musician, returning him from his morose stupor. He immediately smiles and turns towards Getain. I am posed for too long. Should I stay any longer, I fear I'll be overstepping. The mountains are pleasant, but they are not where I belong. When I arrived, the river was still frozen. But spring has likely arrived in the land below by now, and the flowers along the Pelion River should be in bloom. If I leave now and catch the east wind along the river, I might still make it back before summer. Perhaps even in time to ask the woodcutter for a fine piece of parcel wood. And what of your search of the legendary score? Will it continue? The musician shakes his head. This candlelight is far too dim. Would you mind brightening it a little? I got brighter. That's better. Thank you. He glances at the candle, quickly looks away, and then smiles once more at the Minjing. The score, yes. That was why I came into the mountains. The day you saved me, I watched the sky grow darker and darker. Heard the howling of wolves around me. With a broken leg and my instrument clutched in my hand, all I could do was sit beneath a tree. Even then, my thoughts were fixed on the legendary score. Even the wolves came to tear me apart. I hoped to spare my hand that I might at least continue to play. Oh, how I wish for a mortal to descend from the heavens at that time, like your kin to once gift my answer to that score. To humans, the minion might as well be immortal. Incarnates with human face and bird bodies, they dwell deep in the mountains no ordinary mortal can reach, blessed with long lives. Yet, what truly awes and tempts is their ability to alter one's bone, and with it, one's fate. There is no need to name us as such. Realming are no different from humans. We too will one day fade away. But to me, this truly is a blessing of a mortal. In the candlelight, the musician spreads his hands. His fingertips and palms are thick with calluses. Though I never found the score, his hands are spared. That alone is thanks to you. The minion gives an uneasy shake of his feather. Fine, call it what you will. The musician smiles at Getain. But now that I think of it, after searching for long, the score is probably not in the mountains. Or perhaps, I'm simply not destined to find it. Such things can't be forced. Besides, I have already met a mortal in my journey, just as my sister once did. When I return and goes a new piece, who knows? It might be even greater than that one. The Myomyung thinks in silence, his talon lightly tapping the ground. You have made up your mind, so be it, but the path is dangerous and knife. Come dawn, I will see you down the mountain. But, however, there is still one place amidst this peak that may hold clues about the score. Since you will leave tomorrow, perhaps you might come tonight and see for yourself? So 3. Echoes from the Mountains. Is this a minigame? All they wanted to play. Perhaps some tremors still linger in the mountains, enough to gather into a melody. Short tune fragments remain in the score left in the mountains. Spend points to unlock fragments. Every note is worth a different number of points. Fill the fragments with notes. The fragment unlocks when they accumulate a required number of points. Tap note scores to fill in the fragment and unlock the scores tune. Is that right? Am I supposed to match it or something? Let's reset it. Let's check something and see. Oh, okay. So stage 4, footsteps in the snow. Just get some water. Alright. On this early spring night, in which the ice and snow have already melted but a new greenery has yet to grow, it is quiet and lonely. The musician carries his gunshin on his back, following Gintian along with the mountain path towards the temple. Alright, records of the Mingyuan clan history since their arrival at the Central Plains are kept at the Temple of Gintian. It is archived copy of the lost score still exists. Somewhere on the mountain, it may well be there. From afar, they look like two sprigs of duckweed drifting in boundless sea. The candlelight is barely bright enough to illuminate the ground beneath their feet. Even with the minion leading the way, the musician looks somewhat ragged, the new dew soaking his sleeves as he pushed through the waist-high grass. When Gintian stops again to wait, the musician speaks up, apologizing.
I'm sorry.
You saved my life, for which I am deeply grateful, and now I'm causing you even more trouble. It isn't right for me to put you through so much. Saving others is but a simple gesture. I never thought to ask anything of you in return, but you share suffering with me I never expected. By that logic, it is I who owe you. Something you never expected. The musician ponders for a moment, then taps his head in realization. Oh, your kin who once dealt with my ancestor. After all these years, you still remember him. I suppose you were close.
No.
No. I might check those out later, see how it is. Not really. Then, at least old acquaintances?
No. Never.
Nice, where are all those games a single player? You can't mean you were complete strangers. The mailman gives a slight nod. We never met. Well? Gentian extends a wing, brushing aside a clump of white cotton grass, blocking the magician's path. Okay. Did you pick up any other new games? I'm not sure. Like, I think they said like about something about like the Switch 2 console is like gonna be go up in price in like this what autumn, like September. Because I think Japan they already raised the price already. I am simple curious why he, or rather, they, descended the mountains. I had read every word of every record in the temple, yet found nothing of the answer I seek. The mailman tilts his head towards him. You come from the land below. I'd like to hear your answer. Cat bait? What is that? Is that like a catching game or I like because it sounds like a trap. Oh, okay. I see. The musician suddenly understands. Oh, okay. And after you mentioned it last time, I gave it some thought. The Ming Ming centuries may have passed in a blink of an eye, while the world down below has changed beyond recognition. After so many years of retelling, the details of the stories are bound to become unclear. What I shared is all I heard. As for any further details, I truly don't know.
At least,
Still, from the perspective of those below, what the story describes makes sense. He pants as he climbs another stretch of steps. Humans may differ in temperature and appearance, but in the end, everyone's living in the world wants for something that never changes. Some seek power, some seek wealth, some seek generational fame, others seek everlasting glory, and of course, some seek a peerless score. He can't help but smile, pointing at himself. I risked my life climbing the mountains for it. If your kin truly lingers in the human world for the same reason, that will be understandable. Of course, this is just a superficial view of a mere mortal such as myself. And you, I mean immortal, do they also have things they seek? This time, the Ming Mings does not correct his choice of words. Very well, since you've spoken frankly of your own matter, I shall also be truthful with you about my concern. The musician lifts his head to look at him. A moonlight casts a silver glow on the Ming Ming's face, lost in thought. Like humans, Ming Mings develop different disposition over the years. So he actually is the last Ming Mings, actually. Because I think Gintian is the last of his race. It's no more quiet and reserved. One have a favorite camper tree. On moonlit nights, Gintian will see him standing quietly on the highest branch, wings outstretched. Gintian assumed he likely wouldn't leave, and others were especially curious. I knew one who would bring back all matters of human oddities as from the land below, oddities that would reaction him days and night. Passing by his dwelling, Gintian has thought to himself, sooner or later, I'm getting more confused. Am I choosing the wrong ones? Some Ming Mings were mischievous and fond of pranks. One such birds loved to laugh. Gintian can't recall his face, only his cackling when he startles his kid by suddenly flying up from below a cliff. Later, they all descended the mountain, never to return. All I recovered were their bones. Bones that gave me no answer.
However,
I read of where they went after leaving the mountains, whom they met, and the places they passed, but the memory hesitates, his feather trembles slightly. I still don't know why they left. It doesn't sound completely unsolvable though. The magician pushes aside a clump of mudwort and takes a deep breath. He smiles at Gintian. Life in the mountains may be peaceful, but your kin may have longed for something important deep in their hearts. Important enough to give up their longevity. Longevity, for those below the mountains, is often a pursuit, but to your kind it's merely a bargaining chip for to be exchanged. In the land below, some work to preserve life through any means, no matter how shameful. Yet, there are also those willing to sacrifice themselves for something greater. As for what that something is, the magician thinks it over and over again, then shakes his head.
I'm not sure that.
Well, I am but a human from below. I can't possibly grasp how the minion in the mountains think. He just Juequin on his back. The instrument is nearly too heavy for him to carry. Fortunately, the temple is just up ahead. Alright, so it's another mini game. Wait, so fragments contain existing notes. Okay. So am I copying the thing again? Existing notes cannot be removed, but they count towards your points. So we want 6, 2, 2. The mini games are pretty easy. Right, so stage 6, the old tree in the yard. We're lighting the candle again. So, this is the temple of the Ming Ming. Seeing the light kindle before him, the musician paused. It seems this place is not quite what you had in mind. The musician carefully steps around the layer of paper hung like drapes, almost tripping on the scattered scrolls strewed about the ground. Well, I must say, this is nothing like anything I've seen before. He noticed a bone beneath the paper and is unable to hold back his question. This is the remains of your kin? The Mei Ming steps forward into the temple, not looking back.
Exactly.
Is this a custom of the mountains? Handling them this way seems somewhat irrelevant. The Melming voice comes from ahead. They are gone, but flesh and bone. Why fuss over it? His voice paused, tinged with curiosity. Your concerns tell me it is different in the land below. How does your kind treat the dead? Well, we also have temples in them. We gather the remains of the deceased, assess their deeds in life, and enshrine them. How do you assess one's deed? The magician freezes again, unsure of how to answer. How do we assess deeds? By whether they benefit others or whether they served only their own inspiration. But can anyone but oneself truly know the nature of one's inspiration? How could others possibly judge such a thing? On such a night, in such a place, the Malmings Voice sounds eerily calm, echoing as if both near and far. This is precisely what troubles me. By your account, those who descend the mountains must have chosen to pursue their own inspiration. But how are they to confirm the purpose of their lives? On what basis? Basis? Now I really don't understand what you mean. Yin Tian walks back a few steps, gesturing for his companion to look in his direction. On the way here, I told you of 3 of my kin. There's a scattered pile of bones. Yin Tian picks up one. Wait. Yin Tian picks one up. For perfecting principles. And then a second one. For humans' joy and sorrow. And a final third bone. For the injustice of the world. The Mei Ming gazed at them in dull thought. Remarkable inspiration indeed, nothing like those of the ordinary mortals. The musician murmurs. Perhaps, but now? It is all but a moment from the past. And they have returned here, silent and still. If they have foreseen such an ending, would they still have made the same choice? You said you were willing to die for a score. To me, that notion is no different from that of my kin. I'm curious how you came to your choice. That's how you see it. To give everything for one's purpose in life is indeed a difficult thing to choose. And yet, to have choose itself may be a blessing. In the mortal world, countless people live without freedom of choice. As he gives the vague reply, his gaze drifts absently out the window. The moon has begun to sink westward, and the sky has shifted from a shade of deep inky black to dark blue. Dawn is still some time away. He withdraws his gaze, clears his throat, and changes the subject. How are we to find clues about the score among all these scrolls and bones? I can't imagine that we'll come up with much of anything.
That's no matter.
There's no need to worry, just play something. What? Please, your answers bond with the miming through music. If any clue remains here, they will respond. A mountain wind blows into the temple, causing the hanging paper to rustle. The musician reaches out to hold down a scroll that is almost blown away, offering an apologetic smile to his friend. I'm afraid the damage my instrument suffered in the mountains hasn't been repaired yet. The Miao Ming thinks for a moment. I believe that can be resolved. I do not know what your instrument is made of, but whatever you need ought to be here in the temple. The gentle smile on his face slowly fades. We're gonna offer to repair the Jigen. Gintian case falls on the musician's skin. Perhaps my arcane skill can be of help. His lips moves, but in the end, he only lets out another sigh. I appreciate it, but there's no need. I know how to repair a Genshin. Oh, he broke it! He unfastens the Genshin and throws it to the ground. It lands with a heavy thud. Please believe me, I have no ill intent. But this time we were confused. Okay, so this would have to be 2 songs? Or what? See, how many do we fill? Stage 8. He who has gone astray. In the dim light, the musician's hand clenches, then loosens. I'm not descended from any great master. I'm simply the son of a Ginjin maker. My family made a living this way for generations. But I'm a fraud. At times, the musician recalls the desolate leaves of his hometown, the scent of bamboo leaves and parcel wood, a familiar memory that scatters away like wood shavings. Under the shaded eaves, his father once told him the tale of their ancestor meeting a divine bird. And so, he says he wished to learn how to play the Jikin. His father laughed, then gently stroked his hair. He did indeed have hands suited for the strings. Back then, he called him Little Phoenix, and he was doted on like a beloved princeling. But his father left far too early. All that truly remains of him were a few absurd stories, ambitions with no clear direction, and a parcel Gunkin missing its strings. As you can see, I can't really play the instrument. No, not properly. I know the materials of the string are soundbound well enough, but I never had the chance to spend much time learning to use them. The young fraud took stock of all he owns. The story was well prepared, and the parasol was a rare piece of fine wood. All that was missing was a miracle people could believe in. The musician found a Western merchant who sold arcane materials, and discovered that the miracles were cheaper than he thought. Fireproof cloth, the mane of a divine steed, and a silk as tough as jade. It's fixed! And the Jukin was complete, one so beautiful it almost looked as if it was really made from a divine bird tail feather. I left the village like that, and the Jukin slung over my shoulder, and the maker's knife my father left me strapped to my waist. The Mingmans is a little surprised but does not interrupt. There are always people willing to pay a hefty price to glorify their household with stirring legends. So the story was retold from his lips, 1,000 times, polished into something extraordinary and complete. And yet, the instrument has remained forever silent. An immortal's blessing, a peerless score, a projectless young musician. Nights filled with hesitation, a childhood like a drifting tumbleweed, worried, tangled, and knotted like rope. A story that charges onward on real life. The musician can only have one of them. On many nights he dreams of the past. When he wakes, phantom strings tremble softly, sadly, beside his pillow, a reminder that they are still waiting. Perhaps one day he will finally give in, reach out, and touch those strings that do not truly belong to him. Sometimes I think how wonderful it would be if divine birds truly exist. If I really were a man favored by the immortal. Yintian lowers his gaze slightly. Words that can change a person's fate do indeed exist. Yet, for the Mingmings, this is mere melody that can only be played and cherished once. Then, someone actually believes that story. They forced me to climb the mountains and find the Mingming for them. I see. When I first met you, I saw in your bones that you were hiding something. Now it is clear.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. I didn't want to be like this, but I had no other choice. He stammers as he explains. Never truly harbored any malicious intent. The Ming Meng lowers his head to meet his gaze. The musician's voice grows quieter. I was conflicted. I did not know. Wait, I did not. I know not to replay kindness with betrayal, which is why I asked you to go down the mountains. I was afraid that if I stayed any longer, I would begin to having thoughts I shouldn't have. Just let me go down the mountain. Please let me go down the mountain. I won't come back, and I won't tell a soul that I've never met you. Very well. At last, the Ming Meng calmly looks away. In the end, you never truly acted on your falsehood. You're not angry? Those below the mountains are all much the same. Toss it about, uncertain. There is little that is fixed. I saw how you would choose. Besides, what you had just spoke of was not entirely fabrication, although perhaps you did not realize it. He lays his wings over the body of the Jinxing, falls silent for a moment, and begins another story. Long ago, there truly was such a Ming Mange. A wisp of pale smoke slowly rises. So, what, stage 9? A tune that lingers? In a time long ago, so long that his kin still lived on a frontier, human city has yet to appear in the Central Plains, and powerful humans and arcanists still walk the world, not yet reduced to legend. The Gintian, the Memmian clan, created the first song and dance. The music of the Gintian comprised 8 songs: Carry the People, The Swallow, Nourish the Green, Raise the 5 Grains, Honor the Way, Exalt the Divine, Trust the Earth's Virtue, and Bring all things to fullness. From that point on, countless Ming Mings bore the gift of music. Among them, there was one who was especially intoxicated by rhythm. He lost himself in music, rarely assaulting with his kin. Time in the mountains is long, and without seasons, I could not tell when he left. Okay, no matter. The miming sighed softly. For such a lifespan as his, 1,000 years and a single moment were nigh on the same. To me, it is the same. I'm growing more confused. Until one day, convinced he had learned every score the mountain could offer, he ventured down alone to see whether human music held any worth. He must have been disappointed. The musician says quietly.
Exactly.
Yes, he was disappointed. A human lifespan barely 100 years, stripped away the day of ignorant youth and helpless old age, and what remains is only a few fleeting decades. Within that time, one must still endure the difficulty of worldly affairs, and endless hardship, a struggle simply to survive. Time can truly be devoted to oneself is scarce. Even if one pours their entire life into music, it can never be compared to the million with the incredible lifespans. That is what life down below is like. As the season press on, life only grows harder. The Ming man pauses after gathering his thoughts. He went to many places and saw all manners of people. Bustling markets. 2 masters of the age agreed on a musical duel on the city walls with their pipes, drawing a great crowd. The sound was earth-shattering and sky-rending. Indeed, yet the minion remains bored, believing that something is still missing. Banquets of prince and nobles. Amidst the rush of dignitary and the drawing of curtains, the tinkling of crystals and pearls filled in the air. On the rooftop not far away, the Ming Mings watched with a tilted head. A man in a tall crown rose from his seat, bowed deeply, then lifted his head and played the Jingchen less a song than a sonnet of grievance. When the melody properly began, an uproar broke out among the guests. Someone drew a sword. Another turned away a weary sigh. Before the turmoil reached him, he turned and left. This was the poise of scholars, not the devotion of musicians. And households where music was passed down through both instrument and song. The Ming Ming recalled a towering courtyard tree, an armed span deck, just much like the one near his mountain dwelling. It was a lonely courtyard filled with the scent of herbs. Its owners often sat there, holding a Jinkun, unmoving, until the moon sank in the west. The Mengmings heard the owner's faint sigh. What a pity. So brief, after all. He thought, if heavens had granted her 30 more years, perhaps things would have been different. And at first light, he left that verdant courtyard behind. A light breeze passed, and the candle flames suddenly wavers, bringing the musician back to his senses. You mean he never altered a human bone? He murmurs. Of course, immortals have their own affairs. Why would they concern themselves with their lives immortal?
No.
That was not the case. Years later, the Ming Mings resolved to return to the mountains. Feeling his worldly travels was finished, only to encounter a torrent downpour that covers the land in darkness and turned plains into rivers. So he stayed one day longer. The next morning, beneath the parasol tree, the memory met a young man in passing and heard a short tune he has never heard before. The melody was free and wild, hardly a proper composition, yet it brought tears to his eyes. Unable to resist, the memory steps forward to speak to him. The youth humble said he had no talent for music, and that he simply enjoyed plucking the strings for amusement during idle moments. He asked the young man's background and learned that he was just a local Yunxian maker. A Yunxian maker. He repeated twice under his breath, then suddenly stands up. If that is the case, how is it that I never heard of a great musician among my ancestors? If a Mingyan truly altered his fate, why have we, generations after generations, done nothing but make Jingshin? Because it's just a simple tune, utterly unremarkable. Utterly unremarkable, the Mingyan couldn't help but drink in the phase himself. What moved him was, in fact, something utterly unremarkable. There was no earth-shaking event that followed. The young man who played the Jinshin was destined to die young, and so the Mingyan merely wished him a good life. And all his desire came true, that was all. But he still cannot believe it. The music that drew immortals' favor was nothing more than a casual trifle he himself could produce on a whim. If it was that simple from the beginning, then what was the point of all this fabricated achievement? Gintian gives no immediate answer. Instead, he lifts his swing slightly, and the broken Grinchen once treasured, now tossed away, floats in the air. The dust is wiped away, and it is over, as if by an unseen hand, revealing the instrument's goose feet on the underside. Neither metal nor jade. They are made of some materials that gleam with a soft luster in the candlelight. These are his bones. The memory left his remains to his friends, who fashioned them into a ginshin. In the candlelight, the musician's expression flicks and shifts. After a long moment, he speaks again. I understand now. You mean to say there's no need to strive for absolute perfection, so long as our hearts are sincere. Gintian looks at him quietly, neither confirming nor denying it. The truth is clear to me now. The music my ancestors could play, I can play too.
Please.
If that is the case, then could I stay in the mountains? Life below is noisy, cluttered, and distracting. I know where I went wrong. I just want to find a quiet place to devote myself to my instrument, as I did when I was young. But your destiny is not here. Yintian tells him plainly. You came from the land below, and in the end, that is where you belong. Yes, I should have known. He takes a step back, sealing in the daze. After a moment, he gathers the courage to speak again. But, after I leave the mountain, will fortune ever bring me to you again? I do not know. Miming thinks. There is nothing down below that draws my interest. Yet my kin from the stores have no thought of descending the mountains either. As time passes, perhaps my thought will change. They look at each other, silent for a time. Only now does everything finally become clear. There was never any great musician, no score unheard of by the world, and no ideal worth dying for. The young man, who suddenly chased such ideal to this place, is only a petty fraud, though a harmless one at that. Dawn is about to break. The extinguished candle gives off a faint trail of bluish smoke.
Goodbye.
It is time for you to go. And we get the last one. A cool drop of dew falls on the musician's forehead, jolting him awake. He returns to his senses and finds that he is already standing on the stone step leading down the mountain. Behind him, the path leading up is choked by weed, unrecognizable. The man he spoke with is nowhere to be seen. Could it be that it was all just a dream? He feels the weight of his broken chin still resting on his back. He stands there quietly for a while, then turns to face the lush foliage of the mountain path, and begins speaking to no one in particular. I will go down and find somewhere peaceful to stay for a while. I heard of a place called Pave City, beyond royal authorities, where both arcanists and humans live. The musician pauses. From now on, I continue to study this instrument. Before that, though, if I may have such fortune, I'd like to hear the piece my ancestor once played. He hesitates, holding his breath while he waits. There's only the sound of the wind rustling the trees and grass. I understand. The musician murmurs as if reached a decision. He takes the broken guincheon from the back and carefully steps it on the stone steps. This instrument doesn't belong to me. It should be returned to its owner if you are willing. Unable to finish the sentence, he shakes his head and bows deeply towards the empty air. Then, he straightens up to make his descent down the mountains without looking back. The Ming wings give a slight tremble as the newly prepared gentian settles onto the table. The fracture has been properly mended with arcane skill, leaving behind only a faint stem. It truly is a fine instrument. The maker must have been meticulous, polishing again and again to achieve such perfection.
However,
Only. He lifts his wing once more. The goatkin floats in the air, revealing its underside. He narrows his eyes, noticing that a pair of goose feet is not perfectly aligned. Using bone for the instrument's goose feet is uncommon. Perhaps this is the reason for the maker's slight flaw. Or perhaps his heart was heavy simply because there were his friends remained. He shakes his head. Regardless, I do not see the bones of the maker.
why?
And you, why did you think? Yintian asked the bones. They offered no reply. He lets out a almost unfamiliar sigh, left with no answer. He used his imagination instead. Many, many years ago, on a spring night, a Meng Ming quietly descends the mountain with no words to his kin. He traversed mountains that seem endless, crossed rivers that zigzag and intertwine, past human village from which came the bark of dogs and the crow of roosters. Like the divine bird of legend, he flew 99,000 miles. Yet, he flew higher than the mountains where immortal dwell, and further than the crimson cloud that topped the peak. Even the heaviest dew could not dampen his wings. Only when the sky darkens did he stop to rest on an ordinary parasol's tree. The moon sank westward. Humans and arcanists alike slept. The forests, the fields, the mountains, and rivers. The entire world was fast asleep. Yintian ponders. What exactly tempted him to stay? Wait, what exactly tempted him to stay? Perhaps... No. Surely not for some mortal joy. Or perhaps... As if answering himself, he immediately denies it again. No, not even for a peace. Not even for a piece, or the one who played it. He looks down to the world below the mountains. The morning mist has not yet fully dispersed, but the side control of the Pelican River can already be glinting in the sunlight as it flows into the distance, towards unfamiliar towns, villages, lakes, and plains. Separated by a thin veil of mountain mist, life unfolds. Some are born, some die, some laugh, some weep. So fleeting, so hurried, like morning dew, with more days gone than to come. Perhaps that is precisely why it is worth cherishing. The thought stirs his heart, beautiful and unforgettable. After a long while, the Ming Ming placed his long, silent Yunqian before him once more. A boat rocks upon the water. The musician suddenly springs to his feet and looks towards the mountain. Sir, did you hear that? Someone's playing a Genshin. With his silent movements, the small boat lurches violently and the boatman stumbles. Hey, sit still! Don't go startling an old man like me. He clicks his tongue in annoyance and rolls hard, steadying the boat. You must be hearing things. The Pelin River running high today. Can't hear nothing but the water itself. The musician does not reply, his gaze fixed on the mountains. A moment later, he suddenly points his head and shouts excitedly, "No, sir, someone really is playing the Genshin. Look at the banks over there. Even the birds have taken flight." The boatman cranks his neck to peer in the distance and sighs. The sun's out. Of course the birds are looking for food. What's so strange about that? But how loud can one person playing be? Anyhow, you think you'll reach this far and only you hear it? Maybe it's an immortal who's playing. The word slips out of him. Bowen cannot fathom what strange spell has come over this young fella he picked up on a wind. Ain't no immortal in this world, unless you seen one with your own eyes. He opens his mouth, then sinks back down, defeated. He lowers his gaze to the shimmering surface of the Pelin River. It's nothing. I must have imagined it. The boatman clicks his tongue again. All this silly chatter. Just tell me when you're headed. Just tell me where you're headed. I want to go to Pay City. Pay City? And where's that? I've been rolling for more than 30 years and never heard of that place. Wait, so does that mean since she was in the mountains that time below the mountains was faster than when he stayed in the hut or the temple? And yet, this is no illusion. A cool breeze brushes past the minion rings and over the faintly vibrating strings. It is another very, very ordinary tune, Hesitant played for the first time. The end.